So I'm gonna be running through my eyeshadow palette collection today, just kind of showing you the color selection that I have. If you have any suggestions of palettes for me, definitely leave them down in the comment section down there below, but I'm gonna start with some of my larger palettes and then move down to my smaller ones. The largest one that I have is the Kat Von D Saint and Sinner palette. This was released in the holiday season of 2017, I do believe. This is a really pretty palette. I know a lot of people really don't like the crazy color selection here, how it's not really in any sort of order, but I think it's really pretty and it's really fun to pair like one or two shadows out of here with some of the other palettes. I wish that I would have gotten my hands on the Mi Vida Loca Remix palette, but this one's kind of holding me over and making up for it. So I've just really been dabbling in this one. I haven't played with it as much as I would like at this point. Another palette from Kat Von D. This is the Shade and Light Eye palette, and I was really excited to get this. I've had it on my wish list for a very long time, but I just have not been using this as much as I thought I would. I'm just reaching for other neutrals. This is so beautiful though. The shadows are really blendable and very soft. It has an extremely exceptional formula to the shadows, but I just need to reach for it a little bit more. But those were all my Kat Von D palettes. This one here, this is the MAC x 15 palette. This is the neutral cool one. I initially had received the warm one and then I went in and exchanged it for the cool one. I just think this is a really pretty selection of eyeshadows. I have dabbled in them, but you barely make a dent every time that you use them. I do know that these three shades right over here on the far right are all permanent. This one is Blackberry. I think that one is Brun, and then that is Black Tide. I do think that this is permanent now, and they did lower the price from what it was initially. So this is a really nice one if you like cool toned eyeshadows. Next up, I have one of my larger dual-sided MAC eyeshadow palettes. I made this one myself, and I really enjoy MAC eyeshadows. I do have pan on quite a bit in here. I have a video showing all the swatches of all my MAC eyeshadows. I'll list that in the description box for you guys and also in the cards up at the top. But I used to have this color organized, but I've kind of been pulling them out and putting other shadows in their places. These are all the ones that I have in this palette here. This is more like my neutral, everyday kind of MAC palette. The second dual-sided MAC palette, this one has like my overflow shadows and it has more of my colorful ones. I do need to go and get another some more of the dividers. So I have some glitters that were released a few years ago in a holiday collection over here. I just pressed them into some pans, and then on this side over here, like I said, I have more of my colorful shadows. I'll link that video, like I said, down in the description box if you wanted more detail on what these specific shadows are, but I really enjoy the MAC eyeshadow formula, and I love that they lowered their prices on their singles. Next up, I have the Too Faced Chocolate Bar palette, and I used to really like this one. I still like the way that this smells and everything. Still keep the little insert in here as well. This one has some really pretty shades. I definitely want to reach for this a little bit more in 2019, but as far as right now, I don't have pan on any of the shadows in here, but I do really enjoy the shade selection of this one. It's very neutral, very easy to work with, I think, in my opinion. This poor palette has seen better days. This is my Lorac Pro 2, and I'm actually doing a Pan That palette for 2018 with this palette, so I'm not going to show you the inside because I do have my next update coming out within the next day or two. So I'm gonna hold off on showing you the inside of this one, but I think out of the 1 and the 2, I think I definitely prefer the original. I just like the shade selection out of the original one better than the Lorac Pro 2. I have a Urban Decay Naked palette. This is the second one. I finished off the first one in 2017's Pan That palette. But this is a really pretty palette. I definitely feel like I reach for certain shades over other ones. I've had this one around for quite a while. I have a ton of pan on Foxy over here, and then I do have some pan in Pistol. I had Pistol and Verve in a project pan many, many years ago, and I just haven't really went back to this palette. It does have this really nice transition shade here, Tease. It's very similar to MAC's eyeshadow in Quarry. So anyway, that was the Naked 2. This is such a lovely palette. I wish mine didn't look as dirty as it does, but this is the Anastasia Beverly Hills Modern Renaissance palette. I really enjoy the shades out of this palette. I try not to reach for it as much as I would like to, just because I don't want to hit pan on these shadows, which is super silly, but I definitely want to reach for some more of these like deeper pinks and red shades in here. I think they're incredibly gorgeous, and the formula on this palette is phenomenal. I really have been blown away by this palette here. It's one of my probably top 3 favorite palettes that I've ever owned. This has been on my wish list for a very long time. I had it right when it was first released, then I returned it because I wasn't using it, and then when I went back to repurchase it again when it was on sale at Sephora, they had actually discontinued it and you couldn't purchase it anymore. But Stephanie here from Daisy Girly, she sent me her Urban Decay electric palette, so I'm very grateful for that. This has some really bright, intense shades in here. I really enjoy just how vibrant they are. They're incredibly beautiful. I usually will only reach for these shadows as like a pop of color or something, but you can use this palette for a really bright eye look. It's very fun, and I think you can still find it on like Haute Look and Nordstrom Rack. Sometimes we'll carry it. You can still purchase it online, but I think in stores you can't find it very often anymore. But there was the Urban Decay Electric palette. This next one, this is one of my favorite palettes. This is another cooler toned palette. This is the Laura Mercier Eye Art Artist palette, and this was a re-release she released, I think it was in 2013. It was enjoyed so much that she re-released it, but hopefully that's better without the glare. But this has a ton of really beautiful purple shadows in here and some kind of soft satin shades. It has a stronger purple tone to it, but I almost panned this one for 2018's Pan That palette, but I went with the Lorac Pro 2. This is such a beautiful palette. If you really like purples and a cooler look on the eyes, I definitely recommend this one. So this was the Eye Art Artist palette from Laura Mercier. This palette is from MAC, one of their holiday collections. I think it was the 2016 holiday collection that was released sometime around November, December. This one is their Nutcracker Sweet Cool Eye Compact. This is the 9 eyeshadow palette. I know that this palette got a bad rap, kind of, but I actually think it's pretty nice. I thoroughly enjoy some of the shadows in here. I'm not a big fan of this one or that one really, but these here in the center, like the purpley and pink toned ones, are really nice. This one's very pretty on the eyes. I think if you pair this with other shadows in your collection, I think you could come up with a really great eye look, but unfortunately it's not available anymore. You might be able to find this at like CCOs or something for a discounted price, but I liked this palette. I know it didn't get the best review, but I have 2 of these custom palettes here from Buxom. When I was subscribed to Ipsy, I traded in my Ipsy points on these eyeshadow palettes, and I think I might have a duplicate in these. I can't quite remember. These are all individual shadows, so you could go and pick them out yourself if you wanted to. I could take like this green one out and put in different ones. This is a really unique color, I think. It's very duochrome-esque. It's very bright on the eyes, really pretty, but these are really nice shadows. I'm surprised that people don't talk about these eyeshadows more than they do. So that was the first one, and then this other one I kind of put the shadows together so that there was like a purple and this warmer brown and then just like some neutrals in there. So I mean, I think these are really nice. That purple is really gorgeous too. And this one, this is so soft. It is very creamy, very buttery kind of shadows. So if you haven't swatched these out inside Sephora, I definitely recommend them. They're pretty nice quality for eyeshadows, I think. I have a little thing here with some smaller eyeshadow palettes. I'll just run through these really quickly. This one I picked up at the November 2017 Sephora VIB sale. This is the Huda Beauty Mauve Obsessions little 9-pan eyeshadow palette. This has quite a few mauve toned shadows in here and pinky toned shadows. I do really enjoy this palette, but these shimmery ones, they have the worst smell ever. It's very strong. It's like a chemically kind of scent, but they're incredibly gorgeous. Like, I don't know if I can, they almost feel like they're wet, really, but they're very shimmery on the eyes. They look quite nice. I'll even swatch all 3 of the shimmers just so you can see how nice, and they're almost wet looking on the eyes. They're very easy to work with, in my opinion. So this was the Mauve Obsessions. I think there's 3 other palettes. I do have my eye on the super bright one, the colorful eyeshadows, but I think I'll stick with this one for a little bit since I do have the electric palette now. Since I just talked about the Huda Beauty one, I'll mention these MAC x9 eyeshadow palettes. You get 9 shadows out of both of these palettes, but you actually get more product in the Huda Beauty one than you do in the MAC ones, and it's actually cheaper. These are $27 for the Huda Beauty ones, and the MAC ones I think are $32. But I really do like the color selection that they have in the MAC x9 little mini palettes here. This one is the Semi Sweet eyeshadow palette. It has this really gorgeous shade called Outre or Outre, and it has this one that's incredibly similar to Blanc type from MAC. These are so buttery and smooth and blendable. I would say that these are identical to the larger eyeshadow pans. This one down here is very pretty too. This reminds me of Deep Damson, just a touch lighter. This one is kind of like Quarry from MAC. So you do get some permanent shades in here, but it's mostly limited edition ones. That one is a re-released eyeshadow that was limited edition in the past, but these are really nice and they're perfect for traveling and you get a ton of different options. So I really do recommend these as well as the Huda Beauty ones. This is the Givenchy Shimmering Nudes eyeshadow palette. This one got a lot of flack too. I don't think it's as bad as the reviews are saying. I mean, I probably wouldn't go out and spend that, you know, over 60 bucks on this palette. I probably wouldn't spend over 30, I would say, on this palette, but the packaging on this is just gorgeous. Like I said, it's the Shimmering Nudes palette from Givenchy. This one was sent to me through the Octoly website, but these shadows in here, you can use them wet or dry, and I think that's the main thing that people have an issue with, is that they don't have a lot of pigment when you use them dry. If you get these wet, especially these shimmery ones like that one, and that one, it really intensifies the pigment. And then these darker ones like these two here, they look like they're the same color. This one is a lot lighter than that one. You can actually get them wet and use them as a liner. It does kind of make the shadows look kind of yucky in there when you're using them wet, but it does intensify the color, so I feel like it's worth it. I don't mind having a weird looking eyeshadow if it's pretty on the eyes. So anyway, I probably wouldn't recommend this one just because you only get 6 shades. They're very small and the pigmentation isn't out of this world, but you know, I would say if you could find it for half price, it's definitely worth it. If it ever goes on sale, I would say definitely scoop it up. I kind of have a little love obsession with MAC eyeshadows. Here is a little quad that they released. This is the MAC Kabuki Magic Spring and Summer 2017. These are their Dazzle shadows, and this is called the Shining Hour Dazzle Shadow Quad. You get 4 of the Dazzle shadows in here. These are so gorgeous. They have a duochrome on this pink one down here. It has like a peachy pink sort of shift, and then this one is kind of like Club or their blue-brown pigment. It has that green aqua shift and like that warm brown kind of look. It's not really picking up the green in this lighting, but put some swatches down, maybe you can see. They're really shimmery and gorgeous. These 2 on the top up here, they're really mostly just sparkle. It's kind of like the top shades in the Kat Von D Saint and Sinner palette. These are mostly just glitter that you can dab over the top of other eyeshadow looks. So I don't know, it's pretty. I'm glad that I picked it up, but I wish that they would have had something like this that's in the permanent line, because this was only around for a very short window. So that was kind of a bummer, but I do enjoy this. I almost forgot about this one. This is the original Naked Basics palette from Urban Decay. I've had this around for so long. This used to be all that I would take when I was traveling, so I have major pan on the inside of Naked 2 there, but I do have some pretty significant dips in the rest of them, I feel like. I think that this is the perfect little small palette to stuff in your travel makeup bag and take with you when you're going on a trip. Yeah, I definitely recommend this one. I think it's nice. The shades blend easily into one another. There's no like crazy pops of color that don't coincide with the other shades. So the only one that doesn't really work for me is Foxy here, and that's a duplicate from the Naked 2, but I don't mind it. I can use it under the eyes sometimes. Speaking of traveling, this is my little quad that I'll swatch the MAC eyeshadows back and forth between. So right now I do have Blanc type, Malt, Ho, and Deep Damson in this little quad. Like I said, I'll leave that MAC eyeshadow swatching video in the description box for you, but these are all all 4 of these are shades that I would hands down recommend. These are some of my all-time favorite MAC eyeshadows in here. I do finally have 2 Clarins quads here. I'll go over this one first. This one was a summer 2017 limited edition quad. This is the Clarins 4-color eyeshadow palettes. Like I said, it's limited edition. I really love the packaging on this. This one was sent to me from Octoly through the Octoly website from Clarins. I was really nervous about this one because I don't wear orange eyeshadow really, but this shadow right here, the first one was the only dud out of this palette. The rest of them perform beautifully. This is very nice. You can actually create an entire eyeshadow look with just this palette. I had a little bit of hard pan on this one, so I did scratch over the top of that, but it's really great formula on the Clarins eyeshadows. I had no idea that their eyeshadows were that good. And even though I was intimidated by that orange shade, it ended up working really nice. And these shadows, you can actually wear them in the crease and have an all shimmer look, just because the shimmer is more of a subdued kind of shimmer. It's more of a satiny look on the eyelids. So Clarins eyeshadows, they've really been impressing me lately. Then this other Clarins quad here, this one was just sent out to me recently through the Octoly website as well. This one is the 4-color eyeshadow palette, and this one is in the shade number 7, Lovely Rose. Oh, and by the way, you can use these 2 eyeshadow palettes wet or dry. You don't have to just use them dry. So I definitely want to try this one wet. These are the shades in this one. I think these shades are a little bit more my speed. You have this really light kind of lilac sort of shade, this corally pink. This purple actually shows up a lot less intense than it looks in the pan there. I thought it would be really vibrant and intense, but it's actually quite sheer. You really have to build that one up quite a bit, but it is beautiful. And then that one, I mostly just toss it either into the crease or against the outer lash line. So anyway, that was the Clarins quad in Lovely Rose. This just has like an eclectic assortment of single shadows or other shadows that I've depotted, shadows that don't really have a home. I'll probably be throwing away most of these shadows, but let me open it up for you. So I just have like some random assorted shadows over here. I think this one is from Anastasia. This one is a single from Sally's. This one is from Milani. This one is a Sonia Kashuk. This one came in an Ipsy bag. That's really pretty. These 2 down here, these are from Physicians Formula. And then these, I'm going to show them in an upcoming haul video, but those are from Makeup Geek. Those are my very first Makeup Geek eyeshadows. That is a little magnet. I had an eyeshadow on there and I tossed it. I threw it away. I'll probably toss some of these shadows by the end of the year, but anyway, those were all of my eyeshadow palettes. Let me know if you have any of these or if you have any recommendations on any shades or shadows that I should pick up in the future. And that is it. So I really appreciate you guys watching, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.